If you've been playing a ton of new games in 2025, you've probably started to realize that the vast majority of great games that are coming out are surprisingly not from the mega publishing giants or even the AAA studios these days. There's plenty of amazing games that have come out in 2025 that can't exactly be defined as AAA experiences, either because their budgets are, well, too small or they're just not fully priced. Yet despite all of this, the games that are currently getting nominated across the board, they all have something in common. They are not AAA games. Sure, there's a few, but largely speaking, this does ring true. But then there's been a seismic shift in all of this, how the gaming industry has to tackle with the fact that just maybe for most, the AAA bubble, it's burst. And the examples are proving that people don't want to keep buying expensive games that require massive financial investments to keep on playing, and I can prove that to you. Let's first go look at the Game Awards, or as I like to call it, the Jeff Keighley Awards. As you can see here, you have Clair, Obscur, Death Stranding 2, Donkey Kong, Hades 2, and while they're not in this photo, below these games is Silksong and Kingdom Come 2. So all of these games have been nominated for Game of the Year. Donkey Kong, while AAA technically because it is Nintendo, it still had a much smaller budget than say Black Ops 7 or anything else. Death Stranding 2 being nominated is, well, I mean, I platinum Death Stranding 2, and honestly, I don't think it deserves a Game of the Year nomination myself. I kind of honestly hope that Kojima just moves past that series for now and makes something else, if I'm being honest. But again, it's the Jeff Keighley Award, so Jeff is gonna get his buddies nominated somehow, so not really surprising. But outside of these two games, the other four are all either AA or indie titles. Hades 2 is made by a very small team over at Supergiant Games, and while I haven't played Hades 2 myself since it's not on PlayStation yet and I'm biased and only want to play games on there mostly, I have played all the other Supergiant's games and they're all pretty great, so I can only guess that Hades 2 is like their other games, but even better. So yeah, that makes sense why it's here. Kingdom Come 2, I found to be an uneven experience. It had some redeeming qualities, sure, but overall that game sort of disappointed me in the end. I also beat Silksong and enjoyed it, and that game was only $20, which is really annoying the AAA industry as well, because it only costed as much as a store bundle in other games. And of course, then you have the obvious winner for Game of the Year, which is going to be Clair Obscur Expedition 33. There's honestly no real way it doesn't win this. I frankly can't see any other game beating it in this category or even others. And just like all the games mentioned, Expedition 33 is also not a AAA game. It retailed at $50, yet had more content than most AAA offerings around it. It also had 0 microtransactions and had a robust endgame with tons of customization and secrets to uncover. Man, it took me like 90 hours, I think, to 100% Clair Obscur, but I did it, and I enjoyed it a lot. But again, looking at all of these games nominated, they're not really AAA, besides, I guess, the Monkey game and Jeff giving Kojima an honorary mention, I guess, to, I don't know, make his feelings not hurt or something. But like the real battle for Game of the Year and other categories have actually nothing to do with AAA games pretty much. And it's also not even surprising that, say, Battlefield 6 or Black Ops 7 weren't nominated for much either. It's as if the industry knows that the true diamonds in the coal are games not being made by teams of 1,000 people all around the world or something anymore. Another game almost completely non-existent at the Game Awards, thankfully, was Assassin's Creed Shadows, which was made by Ubisoft, of course, and that does not surprise me one bit because that game was, it was not good, dude. Because Ubisoft has, in case you don't know, they've been having a really rough year, and apparently they got bought recently too. I've been hearing from people that it's Tencent, but it would actually be hilarious if like Microsoft bought them, because then Ubisoft's games would be really dead, because that would be horrible, dude. But I doubt anyone but Tencent has bought them, given the circumstances surrounding their situation. But I think what we're seeing this year from the Game Awards nominating multiple indies or AA games is not really by accident. It's no longer a coincidence that this sort of story just keeps repeating itself every single year. It now feels more like a symptom that what's really happening at its core is that the industry is clearly starting to realize and move away from what AAA gaming used to define. Not entirely, of course, because things take time, but it's wild how you could take the budget of Black Ops 7, which if its budget is anything like previous Call of Duty titles, then Black Ops 7 likely costed somewhere in the hundreds of millions of dollars to make. I mean, Cold War was like 300 million plus to make, in case you didn't know. What's wild is if you take the budget of a single Call of Duty game, you could easily finance the development of multiple Game of the Year contenders this year and still have money left over. Expedition 33, for example, example is seen here, was rumored to be made for under $30 million. Some reports claim that it had a budget of just 10 to 15 million, which for you and me, that's still a lot of money, I know. But for a video game these days, that's pretty much peanuts. Again, Expedition 33 retailed at $50 USD. Silk Song was $20 USD. Hades 2 in full release now is only $30 USD. Like, you could buy all three of those games for the price of like Black Ops 7 and maybe a store bundle or its battle pass if you want a comparison, which is, kind of insane, but that's what I mean, that the game industry so clearly wants to stop making these Black Ops sized games in favor of something smaller. They want to make more games that are affordable and less costly, because if a studio has one big screw up with a game that has a Call of Duty size budget like Ubisoft has had not once but multiple times this year alone, like again, look at Ubisoft. They're cooked right now, dude. They stopped their stocks from being trading recently. They stopped everything. That is not normal. And also, if you want more anti-slop, anti-corpo content, consider subscribing and all of that. Thank you. But I remember when I was told by Ubisoft people that besides Shadows costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make, that their other big mega flop of the year, which was Skull and Bones, which was just a massive misfire, dude, from Ubisoft, that also costed them hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain in like 10 years of development time. Like, this sort of development it can't continue. Look at Black Ops 7. The only reason why that game is what it is because it's just full of recycled content, full of remastered maps, a campaign stitched together with duct tape and string and more, it's ridiculous, dude. Because Activision, even at the top with all their big budgets and whatever, thousands of people working on these games around the clock, they still can't meet their own deadlines in time. So they cut as many corners as possible to ship these things out the door. And that cycle isn't working anymore. And if it isn't Call of Duty releasing a new game every year, barely hitting their release dates, it's just games that are in development hell forever, like Grand Theft Auto 6 or stuff like The Elder Scrolls 6. Games that have been in development for almost a decade at this point. This can't be normalized or allowed to continue. You can't have a studio making a game for 10 years. It's not really feasible. Because let's be real, a game taking that long to make runs the real risk of coming out just being outdated. Unless they completely revamp the gameplay system maybe a year or two before launch. Like, let's take GTA 6 as an example here, okay? That game's been in development before things like battle royales and battle passes even really existed. And comparing the gaming world then to now is like comparing medieval times to the TikTok era. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's why I think the future will look radically different than what people have anticipated. Even Ubisoft recently has been found complaining, saying that, people don't want to buy new games or our games anymore, which has led to struggling sales. Like, here's an article from IGN, by the way, where Ubisoft believes that people want games that are not full priced, but instead subscription based and free to play instead. Ubisoft, you always get so close to understanding what people want, but then prove exactly why you're going to get bought out and effectively erased from history because you continue to not understand what people actually want. Like, here's what IGN recited from Ubisoft as it reads here. Ubisoft has warned of falling company revenues and said it's seen that many new games are struggling to stand out as players turn away from traditional full-priced releases. Projects that would previously have stood out are now finding it tough to achieve the sales they may once had, Ubisoft wrote. Except that's not true at all. Plenty of games are doing just fine. It's just that the vast majority of the games doing well have something in common. They don't cost full price to buy, and they're not full of identity politics nonsense. And they mostly have another thing in common. They're also not nickel and diming you aplenty either. I think the only new live service game maybe from the West that has done well recently is Arc Raiders. But again, it's still not $70 at release, although it does have store bundles, which have been reduced in price recently too because they were unsurprisingly too expensive. But Ubisoft then says, as seen here, that they believe that the higher priced games don't sell as well and people just want free-to-play games instead. But that's not true either. Plus, free-to-play is, in my opinion, not really better either, because free-to-play games are largely more expensive in the long run as well. I'm not saying that it's bad if you play free-to-play games. I play Marvel Rivals quite frequently still, so I would be a hypocrite if I said I didn't, but it still stands that if you go look at Rivals store, you have skins ranging from like $16 Canadian to bundles close to $30 Canadian for like 2 outfits and some other stuff. So if I buy 3 of these store bundles on Rivals, I just spent as much as I did in Canada on, say, Black Ops 7 pretty much. much, and 2 of those store bundles in Rivals, I mean, they cost more than Expedition 33 and definitely more than Silksong. So it's no wonder that the vast majority of people are instead opting to play games that are just, well, cheaper in total. Arc Raider's success is because of its cheaper model too, the same way Silksong did what it did because it costed practically nothing at release. For example, here's an article from Games Radar about Silksong, where even indie developers were angry about how cheap Team Cherry was selling Silksong for back in September, because the game was high quality, but again costed about as much as a single gun bundle in Call of Duty. It brings me back to an RJ Lake, a game developer who's working on the indie game Unbeatable, which also recently made fun of Arc Raiders publicly and openly criticizing Team Cherry, overpricing Silksong so low as seen here. And I'm paraphrasing, but RJ believes that the game's price in Silksong is a no-brainer purchase, but having such a low price is also a problem because players are very bad at knowing how much it costs to make things these days. But RJ would continue by saying this: millions of people will probably buy Silksong on day one, and it was a game that had a very low budget because the budget is these developers worked on it without direct pay for however long they wanted to do that. It had a these developers are independently wealthy budget of effectively $0, but RJ would then continue. They can price however low they want. As a result, their return on investment is infinite no matter what they do. But by charging such a low amount, they are causing lizard brain signals to fire off saying this kind of game is worth $20. You should expect this game for $20. As you can see, the problem is not just at a AAA level, but, indie as well. The thing that always happens, as I bring up quite often on this channel, is that whenever a game does break the mold and actually gives players what they want, these developers usually don't really celebrate these games openly, but instead get really angry about them because they're either too cheap or giving things away for free, whatever that means, or there's no way we can meet that quality, therefore it's now unrealistic. They said the same thing about Expedition 33 as well, because again, it was a $50 game that completely destroys games that are like $70 or even $80 at release these days. It's as if whenever games do try to change things, these people they kind of just want it to stay the same. So what are we supposed to do then? Just keep consuming the same kind of games over and over? We're supposed to be okay with, let's say, Call of Duty releasing their overpriced game packages that are not only full priced at release, but will also have store bundles that cost varying prices as well? Not to mention, you gotta buy the battle passes too, and then some. Like, why is it so hard to understand that there is a growing sentiment happening that people are kind of just done with this way of thinking and buying and playing? Why do we have to accept expensive games after expensive games like Black Ops or Assassin's Creed Shadows even? Why is it bad that we want to normalize the cheaper alternatives? Wouldn't it be a net positive in the end if these bigger companies go under? It is technically a problem at first, sure, but I mean, look at what's coming from Ubisoft alone. Not only did Clair Obscur Expedition 33 come to life from ex-Ubisoft devs, by the way, if you didn't know that, but other Ubisoft devs who also left and went off and they made another game called Dispatch, which you may have heard about, but if you look here from PC Gamer, Dispatch has reached its projected 3-year mark of copies sold in just 3 months of sale, which is, yeah, that's a good thing. Now, I haven't played Dispatch myself yet, but hey, it's another smaller game made by a team of passionate devs that, being sold for a fraction of the price of your latest Call of Booty game. Like here, for example, Dispatch in Canada, where I live, unfortunately, is $39 for the entire episodic series. So then, yeah, it's less than half the price of Black Ops is what you're telling me. Wow. Who could have guessed that it would do so well so quickly? Obviously, it's because of its quality, which people keep praising, but again, it's because the game is also not full price. In fact, it's about the same price as Palworld when it released in Canada, and alright, Palworld sold something like 8 million copies in a week. And then Nintendo got so mad, they wanted that game erased from existence. Like, you're likely seeing a pattern here, which is that the game industry, especially in the West, is being splintered and more developers are actually running away from AAA development to start their own smaller studios, and I mean, who can blame them? Because this is frankly the only way to get actual real games made again. I mean, Black Ops 7, for God's sakes, has 10 studios working on that game. 10, dude. One of them is High Moon Studios. You know, the people who made those excellent Transformers War and Fall of Cybertron games? Man, wouldn't you love a third game in that series? Too bad. They're now being forced to make Call of Duty until the universe gets sucked into like a black hole one day, which really sucks, because so many cool games could be getting made today, but instead everything is safe corpo slop. Like, if those developers that made Expedition 33 and Dispatch were still at Ubisoft, they'd probably just be working on Assassin's Creed for the rest of time, and we would never have even gotten these games to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, imagine how many great games could be out there right now, but these developers are being chained to the ground to just make the same franchises over and over and over again. content, dude. Like, that is a problem, no matter how you slice it. Which is why it's so important that the games that are actually trying to do something different are being praised these days, and that's a good thing. But when you have people like that RJ Lake guy, who again thinks that Silksong is more of a threat than a boon to the industry, it kind of just tells me that the shift for actual change won't be as easy as it should be. You see, Expedition 33 and Dispatch should be the norm. Games that are just fun and have good content that is worth the money you spent on it. And it will never sit right with me that games like Call of Duty thought selling like a King Kong glove for $80 basically in the past and then try to push it off as normal. So what we're seeing in games is a revolution. I really don't know how else to put it to you. Like, the best way we can change things is by buying and playing games that aren't made to nickel and dime us or, talk down to us or make you feel dumb for having bought it in the first place like Black Ops 7 did. Of course, it doesn't mean that these AAA games will disappear forever. I think there will always be a market for these big, expensive experiences. After all, Battlefield 6 recently confirmed that it was the biggest selling shooter of the year, which means that yes, despite Black Ops 7 debuting, it could not in fact beat Battlefield 6. As seen here from Game Rant, EA has confirmed that Battlefield 6 has outperformed its competition. So there you go. Definitively, we now know that Call of Duty has lost this year to Battlefield. So yeah, there is still a market for these big games, obviously, but frankly, there isn't enough investment to make most of these games resounding success stories like this. What I'm instead hoping is that stuff like Expedition 33 makes a statement that people don't want Nuketown for the 8th time in a row again, but with a different paint job. Although some websites aren't convinced, like Polygon, as you can see here, they claim that Expedition 33 shouldn't even be classified as an indie game in the first place. In case you don't know, Expedition was actually nominated for 12 categories, including Best Indie Game, Best Debut Game, Game of the Year, just to name a few. And Sandfall, which made the game, is technically an indie studio. They left their AAA jobs, like I said, they formed a new team and made something that is budgeted at a fraction of what Shadows or Black Ops costed. Expedition 33 is now also it's this year's Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring, a game that shouldn't exist, but it does anyways. Expedition 33 is going to win, mark my words, no doubt about it. Also, I want to clarify, it is not a JRPG, even though people are saying that online, because it was not made in Japan nor by Japanese people. So Clair, Obscur, Expedition 33, it's an RPG, okay? So yeah, please stop calling it a JRPG when it isn't. But the fact that every year the usual suspects are left out of the conversation like Call of Duty, that should tell them everything. They're what's wrong with the industry. And if it's not games pushing ideology, it's expensive corporate slop that wants you to buy into their experiences instead, giving them money all the time on top of charging you full price every single time. I think genuinely that era of gaming is going to fall off because it's just not sustainable. Even Battlefield is in trouble recently because they are trying to charge $24 for a bundle on their store from a game that you gotta pay full price to get anyways. And in case someone thinks that I'm lying, here, as IGN shows, you got the 323 bundle for 2,400 Battlefield money battle bucks. I honestly forgot what the currency is called. It doesn't matter. There it is. So now you know that it's real. But yeah, this kind of stuff just kind of has to go. If your game is full price, no, you shouldn't be charging me over 1/4 the base price of your game for like a bundle. And Black Ops 7 is still too early in its life cycle as well. But if they're anything like previous Call of Duty games, they're going to be ridiculous and overpriced as well. And I mean, you need only look at Battlefield's own subreddit as seen here with this meme. Like, yeah, it's too much, man. Even the comments, like, look at these things. Like, this user said, you want to play a male operator skin? Too bad. That's going to be a $20 plus thing as well. Like, it's just stupid to me. And Call of Duty's going to do this too, of course, yet in Clair Obscur, all the outfits are obtained in-game by just doing in-game stuff like you used to in older games. And sure, they could have easily charged money for bonus outfits in Clair Obscur or even Silksong, but they didn't. It's just getting bad at this point. But seeing all of these examples, it becomes pretty obvious that the game industry is not really ready to admit the truth that what they're doing is not working anymore. They don't have to admit it, however, because we can see it with our own eyes objectively that what has been going on here is proof enough that the culture is shifting. The games that are being celebrated are the antithesis of what Call of Duty or even Battlefield is doing now. People just want cool games that don't cost half their rent to buy into while being told that if they want to play as men, they have to pay extra now. Like, that's just stupid. But it's not surprising that Call of Duty anyways got defeated by Battlefield this year, but it's extra not surprising that neither of these games got nominated for Game of the Year either. Because how could they when ultimately they offer similar experiences to what already existed from their franchises. Like, I don't hate Battlefield 6, but I'm not really crazy about it either. I'd much rather just go play my JRPGs any day of the week than pay $20 or whatever for some skin bundle in a game these days. But the Game Awards has proven one thing at least, that nobody is ever going to take the Battlefields and the Call of Duties of the world seriously if they want to just continue doing the same stupid stuff like they keep on doing. And look, if you enjoyed those games, that's cool. Play them. I don't mind. I totally understand the concept of wanting the digital equivalent of junk food. I get it. I'm guilty of that as well. But can we also admit that if the inevitable future comes where every year we're going to have like a new COD or Battlefield, that the oversaturation is going to hit a fever pitch unlike we've ever seen before? Because in case you don't know, EA does want a new Battlefield every year, by the way, as does Call of Duty, obviously, too. Like, God, man, we're going to be in for some really annoying fall seasons once both of those games decide to do yearly forever content. Oh, I can't wait, dude. But what do you think about all of this? Is AAA gaming hitting the point where it's no longer feasible to do what they've done in the past? Can the industry even stomach or develop Call of Duty level size titles at a reasonable pace anymore? Or is the indie and AA side of the equation the real future? Like, let me know. Thanks for being here, and like always, subscribe, take care of yourselves too, and just go play something that makes you happy. And for me, that's gotta be JRPGs, but also the AAA industry cannot fall apart soon enough if you ask me, and when it does, I will be here to twerk on its grave. I can't wait.